Hey planty friends, welcome back to my channel, Planty Princess another 2 with another video by yours truly. My name's Ashley and today we are going to be repotting my beautiful pothos NJoy. If you can see, it got quite large. It has very long vines, and what is making me repot this is when I water it, it doesn't hold on to enough water, which means there's not enough soil around the root balls to keep in the moisture that it needs. So today I'm going to repot this. I am going to give, I'm not only repotting it, I am going to split it apart and put a little, I'm going to keep it in this pot and put a little in another pot because I already am in a 6-inch pot and I really don't want it in a pot any bigger than that. So this is going to be a present for my mother. So today I have my trusty assistant, Sienna. So we'll get started here and I'll show you how we will be repotting this pothos. Now pothos are really easy plants to take care of. They can tolerate low light. As with any other plant, they appreciate a little bit brighter indirect light. This I have in an east-facing window. It's hanging in the windowsill, so it really does get a lot of that morning light. And then it's in the same room with the south-facing window, but it's further away from the south-facing window, so the room's bright all day long, but nothing too harsh to scorch the leaves. So I'm going to start by taking this out of here. I don't know. Okay, I see. We'll just unclip these hangers. And now pothos, I've been watering this pothos more than you would normally water a pothos, like I said, because there's not enough soil around the root ball to hold the moisture it needs. But typically you'd probably water a pothos maybe every 7 to 10 days. As with most plants, they do not like to be overwatered, but they can handle it a little better than other plants. But I would say err on the side of dry rather than wet, because they can handle drought. They're a little more drought tolerant than they are, you know, too wet. So we're gonna pop this out of here, check out the roots, see if there's anything that I need to trim up to keep this growing nice and healthy. Then we'll split it apart. I have a secondary pot here that I already have cleaned and sterilized. And we will split it up, put some in here for my mom, and put the rest in here to grow back in my east-facing window. I'm just gonna kind of tip this over, pull it out, and I'll show you guys the roots. Now you can see this isn't too bad, but you do see how the roots are already spiraling around the bottom of the pot, and shortly they would have started growing out of the drainage holes. So I'm nicely going to tease out these roots, and I'm going to do it over my pot so that way most of this soil will fall directly back into the pot. And then I'll see what I can do to kind of split it up. Now you want to be as gentle as possible because you don't want to damage roots. You want to be you want to be careful and try to lightly pick these apart, because the less damage the better. These plants do recover pretty quickly, so don't get upset if you do have to either trim a couple off or cut through a couple to get through them, because they are going to come back very nicely as long as you keep them in the correct conditions. You don't have to worry about that. They're very hardy plants. Now, for my purpose of this, I'm gonna tease this open. I'm gonna take out what I can. You know, if I don't have to break this whole thing apart, that would be better for me, because like I said, I only want to take a little bit out of here. That way I have more room in the pot for what I have growing, and can put, you know, a couple pieces of this into a pot for my mother. So I don't really have to go too crazy and break this whole thing apart if I don't have to, because I'm just basically going to take a few pieces out of here. So I got my first piece coming out here. The roots are all tangled up, so I may have to cut through this a little bit. I want to try to get as much of the roots as I can with this. That way it can continue to grow. So here's my first piece. I kept a nice healthy root system going on with this little guy. As you can see, it's pretty long. So that will be a great starter for the first little stem that will go in the next pot. So I'll just set that right over there. That's a leaf that broke off. We can just discard that. Now, leaves like this, for any plant, if you have a compost pile, you can definitely throw this right in your compost pile. And again, it's just extra organic material that you can later on add to your soil once it breaks down. That's really great for the plants. So I have another one coming out here. Try to get as much of the root as I can without fully breaking this apart here. There we go. Ooh, this is a pretty long one too. So again, I got a decent amount of roots still attached here. That way it has a base to start growing. And we have another beautiful piece. Set that aside. And I will just break off maybe 2 or 3 more. We'll see what we can pull out of here. And as well, I will start taking out any dead pieces of foliage that I see laying in here to kind of clean it up while I have it open. I think pothos are like one of my favorite plants because they're so easy to care for and they really are so beautiful. I'd say pothos and philodendron is right up there with my Hoya kick lately. Can never have too many, right?
You can never have too many plants in general.
And that's right. You can never have too many plants in general. I would be interested in knowing what your favorite pothos is. So leave that in the comments below, what your favorite type of pothos is. Mine is, I think my favorite pothos would be this here, this NJoy Pothos, because I really like the variegation. I really love the variegation. It's beautiful. It's kind of like splotchy, as if it was kind of just like painted on, like blopped on. It's really pretty. Again, here's my third strand with that nice root system. And we'll get two more. So now I got this little one. It only has a couple roots, but I think, and these are very easily propagated, so I think if I stick this right in the soil, it will grow a new root system quite readily and it should be good to go. Again, with that Nice root system started already. Very nice. And I just want to show you the foliage. I mean, it just really is pretty, an up close picture of it. And as well as you can see that I already made a cut right here, and you can see it already poking through with a new vine. So wherever you make cuts at the nodes, another vine will then start pushing through. So if it ever breaks off or, you know, whatever, don't be worried about it, because they really just come right back.
Like this one that broke off.
Yep, like this one. Another one will just come right in place of it. All right, so for this pot, for my pot, I will keep most of the soil that I already have in here. It's already filled. I'm gonna get rid of the extra roots that broke off, as many as I can pick out from here, just so that way it's not rotting, and you know, certain types of bugs like to feed on that, so that will just attract like fungus gnats, and we don't want that. So I'm gonna get out whatever I can here, at least the big pieces, and then this soil pretty much fills up the pot 3/4 of the way. So I will just stick this right back in there. And normally, if you were just repotting, like I did in the beginning, I would tease the root ball open. That way the roots can grow and add soil into the top to give it fresh soil. So we will just add fresh soil into the top, and then you want to make sure there's no air bubbles, right? So you want to come over here and hold these up for me while I put in the soil. Just hold them up and out of the way. There you go. And we will fill this with fresh soil. Now you can either use a shovel or a spoon if you have a little pot. I tend to like to use a spoon if I'm working with a tinier pot, because sometimes it's hard to get the soil in without it going all over the place. But right now I'm working outside, so it really doesn't matter the mess I make, because it won't get all over my floor. So, and then I'll just pack it down, make sure it gets in there good, and untangle these a little bit. And these plants are really good. If you haven't noticed on any of the pieces that I showed you, there are a ton of aerial roots. Now some of these are dead, but just to show you, there are aerial roots that grow along the whole stem to make it attach and be able to climb up things in its, you know, native environment. So it works really well. Hold this up for me. If you provide it with a trellis, and the leaves tend to grow in a little bigger than they would if you just have it dangling down. Now I'm not really sure why that is. I would think just out of maybe like common sense, you know, if they're trailing down and the leaves continue to grow bigger, that would mean that it's more weight that the vines have to hold. So maybe that's why they tend to grow smaller when they're vining down, as compared to when they're trellising up, they have something to support that weight. So therefore that allows them to be able to grow a little bigger. That's what I would think. Okay, so I'm just about finished. Hold this up for me. I'm just about finished. Hold it up. Thank you. With this one here. And then, that's good. And then I will get started on the one for my mom. So, as you can see, even out of what I took out, I mean, you can barely even notice I took anything out of this plant. It is still just humongous, gorgeous, gorgeous. It really is. So I will water these. I waited till this dried out before I even attempted to repot this, because I thought it would be a little less messy and the soil would probably fall apart a little better if the soil wasn't wet. So I waited until this was completely dry before I even attempted to repot this and break it apart. So I will go ahead and give this a nice watering. If you watch my plant tour, I briefly talked about how I water my plants, each plant as I went through. My pothos, I do bottom water. I let them sit in there until they soak up the majority of the water that they need. And then I do add a tiny bit more into the top just to kind of get it thoroughly soaked all the way around. So we will go ahead and then start our second plant. So I'm gonna fill the bottom a third of the way full. Actually, yeah, a third of the way full. No, let me correct myself. 3/4 of the way full. I want it so there's only about 2 inches from the top, basically, because I will just dig through, make spots for the roots, and then fill in the remainder. And this is where I will really need my trusty assistant's help to hold these in place while I fill in the rest of the soil. So we'll make sure that's all nice and compact. And then I will kind of just place these where I want them. And I'll need your help to hold these into place while I then fill in the pot. Okay? Is that all of them? Yep, that's all of them. So we got five nice plants. So I'll just stick these in like this, like this, like this, like this, like this, like this. And this one is the one like this. So it looks like this is the only one you're going to need to hold. Can you just hold this one right here like this for me? Hold it right there. Okay? All right. So that was relatively easy. We will just kind of dump the soil around the edges and in the middle to get these guys standing up. You want to make sure all their roots are covered. Now, if, a couple roots stick out, it's really not a big deal. Plants know which way to grow. Aside from planting them completely upside down, the roots will find their way down into the soil and the foliage will find its way up out of the soil. So don't stress if you cover a couple leaves. Don't stress if you can't get 100% of the roots into the soil, because they will naturally make its way. I'm going to just lightly press these down, make sure there's no air bubbles. And again, I will give this a good watering. Now, although this is a ceramic pot and the other one I still have in its nursery pot, there is a drainage hole in the bottom of this pot. So I will water this through the bottom. And again, just like my other pothos, I will give it a little extra around the top. And from there, it will be in my mother's care. Dun, dun, dun. Just kidding. She should be fine. Don't tell her I said that. All right. Don't tell her I said that.
She's gonna watch this.
She's gonna watch my video and be like, what? I can take care of plants? Yes, Mom. Yes, you can. You're fantastic. We love you. And here's your new plant. I hope you love it. So beautiful. All right, so thank you for joining me for this repot with me. I hope you learned a few things. If you have any extra care tips or repotting tips for pothos or any other plant for that matter, please leave them in the comments down below. If you're interested in my channel and the content I provide, subscribe and hit the bell for notifications to the new videos I post. Thank you for joining me, and I will see you in the next one. Every plant's a princess.